I made a post earlier on the Hell site. And I said, claiming DPRK is reactionary nationalism after October 7th is reflective of a person being more Western than Marx. You always get this left comment every fucking time. Wish you try reading Marx sometime. Like, this is left comms always have the same response every fucking time. Wish you'd read Marx, or like, why don't you read Critique of the Gotha Program, or like some other bullshit like this, like we all haven't fucking read Marx. Who, like, try it sometime, Larry, please. Never read Marx, as you all know. As you all know, I have famously never read Marx. Like, I love that, right? I actually went for one that I knew would piss this particular person off in my response. And I said, wish you'd try reading any other Marxist sometime. Some updates to the analysis since 1867 has been vital for Marxism's development and ability to be practiced in the real world. Some Deng Xiaoping would do you good, I said. And then the response is great. The response is great. I'm reading To Board right now, alongside Amy O'Brien, Marx, and Patrick Murray. I've also read Boston, Lucas, Coulthard, Fanon, Hickel, Freire, Lenin, Luxemburg, Patrick Wolf, W.E. Du Bois, Robinson, Edward Said, Marcuse, A.L. So, many of these have been written in the past 10 years. Yeah, well, I love that one of the ones mentioned here is Edward Said, too. Well, try reading them again. Yeah. But then this was the comment I was waiting for. Also, Deng was a capitalist. Why would I read something antithetical to communism? There it is. That's the comment I was waiting for. This one is funny too. Telling someone, I mean, some of these aren't bad reads, right? But that's like I said, Edward Said isn't a bad read. However, I would say that like reading Edward Said and then not reading like revolutionary resistance fighters who came after him would be a mistake at the same time. You know what I mean? Like you can, you know, this person made me laugh too. This, like, what is this? What is this? This is even better. Telling someone to read Deng is actually hilarious. Mao failed to understand Marx, unlike UV here. UV green glowing fart of a profile picture clearly understands Marx much better than Mao Zedong did. Or he didn't care to. But Deng actively encouraged capitalism. Actively encouraged capitalism. Like where? When did that happen? There. I'm just gonna ask them to link me whatever read they think is doing that so that I can read it and then laugh at them. And then, like, this is what I thought was funny because then they go, That's every ML though. They read State and Revolution and move on to Mao sometimes and then just say stuff like USSR good, China good, DPRK good. Yes, all of those things are true, but that's not all we say. I mean, that's ridiculous. I love this conversation these two get having with each other. Look at this. It's a shame. Frankly, anyone who starts with Lenin should spend a long time on Marx. I actually like Lenin, especially as a revolutionary, but he is so distorted afterwards. Same for Marx. The German ideology, a critique of the Gotha program, are almost essential, I would say. There's the two. There's the two I always said always come up, right? German ideology, critique of the Gotha program. They always tell you to read Marx, but it's always those two fucking works every time. I don't really like Lenin, outside of being a revolutionary figure for that reason. People are annoyed when I say to skip reading Lenin for theory purposes, but there's a lot of unlearning to do if you don't read any Marx. These people are fucking religious, you see. They treat Marx like a religious prophet, and those who don't align enough with what Marx previously said must automatically be discarded, essentially. And right here, to be fair, I don't think Lenin added much theory-wise, but State and Revolution and Imperialism are pretty good for their time. I do think carrying on with the Second International shorthand calling proletarian revolution as socialism enabled falsification of stagism, but I'd argue he himself understood the matter fine, but added unnecessary new terms to refer to lower and higher phase communism, and also that such terminology obviously didn't begin with him. You see this? What we have here, comrades, the reason I'm showing you this is because what we have here is what Michael Parenti liked to call how many Marxists can dance on the head of a surplus value. That's we're witnessing this in real time, right? This is two academic, really smart, studied a lot of Marx, haven't done a lot of actual practical fucking organizing motherfuckers. I can tell, right? Like okay, maybe these individuals that might not apply to. But I'm telling you, people with this rhetoric, that's generally what it is. It's these people who have studied Critique of the Gotha program and all of that classic Marx works endlessly. They don't organize in any parties, and so they just have all of this academic, intellectual theory jargon, and they just endlessly go on and on about it like this. Like, what is this actually doing? What is this solving for anybody? What is trying to define what is the proletarian revolution and what is socialism? What is the difference between those two? What is that solving in our current revolutionary position right now? Let me ask you that, right? Like, what does that solve? What enlightening thing does that allow us to see that we can't see if we don't understand the separation between the proletarian revolution and socialism? Right? Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense because it doesn't functionally make any fucking difference. If we can get people for proletarian revolution, then they'll build socialism. Right? So what does that even mean? That's just a nonsensical question. Trying to split the hairs of what Marx defined as proletarian revolution and then what he defined as socialist society is exactly what Kim Jong-il critiqued as being so abstracted from actual practice of the masses, involved in like this theory, and you're involved in the theory in a way that is like so disconnected that you don't see what the actual questions concerning the revolutionary movement are, and instead you're just focused on all of these little theoretical things that might not even have any like theoretical application. It's not a question faces the masses right now. Are the masses right now worried about what the difference between the proletarian revolution and socialism is? Right? No. The fuck? We're just trying to get them to support ending fucking imperialism and moving towards us building a socialist society, right? I don't care if they can define what proletarian revolution is or what socialism is. That's ridiculous. And the other thing I would say is that going back and then trying to use Marx to define a socialist society is actually you being reactionary and dogmatic. Because how could you expect Marx to give us a definition of socialism? Right? I think every single person who does that is actually showing their ass. Because you're proving that you treat this as a religion when you do that. Because how could you expect Marx to give you a definition of socialism? Did socialism exist in Marx's time? Was Marx able to analyze socialism? Or did socialist society emerge after Marx was already dead? Right? So how can you be looking at Marx looking for his definition of socialism? He was literally very careful not to define socialism for that reason. He defined socialism as he gave us a very broad prediction and said that socialism, and this is literally what Marx said, is that socialism is the revolutionary transitional period between capitalism and higher phase communism. So to me, that implies that the revolution, therefore, is building socialism. Whether or not it's at this stage, like what very particular stage of socialism is at, doesn't really matter, does it? What matters is, are we building socialism or are we not building socialism? It's like there's two answers to that question, right? And that's why I say, like, these people who are doing that, they need to go beyond what Marx is to try and define socialism. Yeah, exactly, Neuro Riot. Chatter Neuro Riot has it bang on right here, which is that Marx focused much more on defining capitalism than socialism. Right? Because he was worried about giving the proletariat the ability and the tools necessary to fight against capitalism. That's what he was focused on, because that was the practical problem facing the revolutionary movement in his time. And he rejected idealism. He rejected this working out of a perfect society and then working towards that. He rejected that. He said that that is the job of the utopians. And instead, what he seeks to understand is what direction the masses are headed in. And that the direction that they're headed in will ultimately lead to a higher phase of communist society. He didn't know those details. And even Lenin comes along and as well let's be real, for Lenin's contributions, it's called Marxism-Leninism because Lenin improved Marxism. He added the analysis of imperialism into it, and so Marxism couldn't exist in the modern era without Leninism attached to it. It's just a fact. And the truth of that is like Trotskyists and all of these other fucking people, right? Lenin Smash, welcome in. I don't know why your thing's not going off. I will take care of that in a second. But even Lenin didn't actually analyze a socialist society. He advanced Marxism. He added the analysis of the fight against imperialism. But when did Lenin die, comrades? When did Lenin pass away?
What's it gonna be?
Drugs!
Huh?
I choose drugs! Drugs!
Thank you. I will choose drugs. Oh, here it comes. It's like my doubling up audio is wild. Don't worry. Don't worry. I'm very practiced at talking like this, Gray. It sounds like I can rant. I can rant with the best of them. Trust me. I'm gonna choose drugs. I just gotta empty out this here into a jar or something. So yeah, like with Lenin, like I say, he died in very early on in the building of revolution. Like, USSR had just established essentially its revolutionary state. And Lenin died, unfortunately, very early on into that. So again, even Lenin never gave us any kind of analysis of socialist society. He just didn't. Like, he analyzed how to carry out a revolution against capitalism and imperialism, and he showed us how to do that, and he showed us the initiating of setting up that proletarian state. But he was never able to analyze what socialist society is. This is why I say, like, this is why I say, if you really want to understand socialism, you read Deng Xiaoping and you read Kim Jong-il. Because those two people did analyze socialist societies, actually existing socialist society, and answered important questions that were facing their revolution. And China's continuing ongoing revolution, which is proven by its militant and dramatic poverty reduction drive, has shown that they took the correct idea. They have the correct path. They understood correctly how socialism develops, what defines socialism. And that's why, again, my favorite thing, really, it was said by Kim Jong-il, but like my favorite way to understand it is like, capitalism is the society where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Socialism is the opposite. And like I said, every one of these people, these left comms, like Attack Penguin here, every one of these people, they are against that response, right? Again, they, them, I have a Pavlovian response to people telling me China is socialist. There is a way to turn that off, tits out for tankies. Does anyone know how I would end up being gifted a sub for a streamer I've never watched, never followed, isn't in TankTube, and like just randomly someone gifted me a sub to their stream? I'm so confused. Is that a big thing? Yes. Yes. I get a gift sub to a particular anarchist stream every month, I would say. Every single month I get this. I get the same gift sub to the same anarchist stream. I really you can disable it. And I really should do it for me. Let me see if I can find one of the, yeah, look, I got the emotes right now. I got the emotes right now. I have every month. I have them every single month. There's not a month that there's not a month that I don't have them. Yeah, there's a way you can be gifted Sinjal's got some too. Yeah. Oh no, those, to be fair, I like those emotes. Tits out for tankies. I do like those emotes. I'm not gonna lie, I am a Rhizome. I do watch Rhizome once in a while, actually. So Rhizome is like a leftist stream. Rhizome's like a leftist stream, but does like a lot of like the brain rot. Like, you know how Larry will do torture chamber? Well, that's Rhizome's whole stream. And like you can cause all kinds of noise and stuff to happen on stream. It's actually a pretty fun space. It's actually a pretty fun space. You like go in and like you know. Oh yeah, well it's not for everybody, but if you're like me, If you're like me and you like to engage in the brain rot with friends once in a while with comrades, it is a good place to go and laugh and joke and make fun of right wing like brain rot, right? It is a good space for that. Rhizome's really good streamer, really friendly, very much like Larry in one respect. So yeah, check out Rhizome stream, I would say. That's one of the outside tank tube streams that I will say y'all should check out sometime if you are into like watching brain rot with comrades, which can be has its own like entertainment value, right? Yeah. He like he enjoys the number 420 like many of us. The fucking discourse on Cuba on Twitter is so fucking terrible. I swear, the most Twitter. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, that the Discord around Cuba right now is everywhere, and it mirrors the discourse going around. It mirrors the Discord going around involving Venezuela, and it's annoying me. I cannot stand this. Again, I said it earlier in the stream, but the narratives of Venezuela's revolution has now faltered and Delcy has betrayed it is fucking pissing me off so much I can't listen to any of it. Venezuela is fighting on, comrades. It is still the resistance, for God's sakes. It is still the Bolivarian revolution. It is the Chavista revolution. It hasn't failed. I need y'all to understand that. Please, I'm begging you. Begging you to understand. Exactly, Sinchao. That's the thing, right? Like, that's kind of the thing. Everybody, make sure you go follow Virgo. It's like people will understand, like they will say that when we're talking about USSR, but they cannot extend that same understanding when it comes to like the situation in Venezuela right now. Oh, so now the revolution's got to be perfect. Are you a revolutionary who defends fucking like this is the thing, right? This is why I try to get people understanding like why I militantly defend Russia like as an anti-imperialist, as a player in the anti-imperialist axis, and developing domestically to a more progressive place in a way that fucking Western societies simply are not, right? The same thing for Venezuela. Like, you have to understand, like, these places where revolutionary changes in these massive fucking movements are occurring aren't fucking perfect. It's not a smooth ride. It's not a dinner party where you can laugh and joke. Like, it's a serious fucking struggle. Right? And like, you should not, like, the show of power of the US imperialists landing those ospreys in Venezuela or whatever else is not, or the oil deal that went through once they capture Maduro. None of that is proof of the revolution being betrayed or anything like that. It's proof of an ongoing strategy to fight against imperialism. Right? Perfect revolution sounds pure socialist to me. The world of make believe is a hell of a drug. Exactly. This is the thing. Revolution has to exist in the real world. It's the one thing that I think that a lot of like these people who are divorced from like practical struggle, like why they get so lost in that academic like Marxist jargon and shit is exactly because like they don't have that pairing of like their theory with their practice, right? So they just literally don't understand what the practical questions are that are facing revolution. And so they just get caught up in this like cycle of read Marx without actually like trying to put any Marxism into practice, you know? And one thing that we have to understand, and one thing that I would say Deng Xiaoping understood very, very, very well, and Stalin before him, was that the party and us communists can't just make up economic laws. Like Deng Xiaoping, like that's the important thing he understood, right? He understood you couldn't just say, "Oh, we can't, no market economy at all. That everything has to be just strictly planned." Like the masses themselves are the ones building socialism, right? And so if the socialism, if the theory doesn't actually apply to their real lives, then those people are going to become divorced from the party, which is the opposite of what the party has to do. The party has to build a mass movement around itself that voluntarily tries to follow the party line as closely as possible. Right? So it's like you can't invent these economic laws out of nowhere. You have to understand the economic laws as they already exist. And that's what Deng Xiaoping did. He understood that the Gang of Four was just refusing to understand economic laws as they exist. This was leading to a further and further divorcing of the masses and the people, which became very prominent in the Cultural Revolution. It became like a serious issue then, where national minorities were having their cultural sensibilities and things like this violated by these students, right? And like that's an aspect of the Cultural Revolution that is so often romanticized by Westerners that is never spoken about. And that's why today China, when they look back at the Cultural Revolution, they look back at it as an important learning lesson, where they learned that the policies of the Gang of Four did not coincide with reality, and it was leading to this divorce of the people and the masses that threw the entire party at jeopardy of losing its ruling position. Why? Because it will have lost the support of the masses. It would have lost the support of the broad working masses that is necessary to have the working class be the leader of that revolution. And if it does that, then it would have followed the same path as USSR and actually been overthrown. It understood that. And it understood that it has to build a socialism that is by the people, for the people. That's what Deng Xiaoping did. Was he got rid of, he fought against like that segment that was like so divorced from the masses, and he brought back and you can see that today. That's why people in China today, they identify with modern China in a way that like other countries, like we look at and we get secondary patriotism from it, you know? So again, you have to kind of apply the same logic to fucking Venezuela as well. And understand that it's not just this smooth, straight line, and that the revolution isn't just this one violent event. It's it's a very long event. It has ups and downs, and most of it is like mundane doing everyday work. Right? That's like most of the revolution. Cuba is going to do whatever it can to feed and take care of their people. That's what matters, the people's well-being. And here's what I'll say very briefly. Again, I do recommend you go and check out Collective TV's discussion on this. And I think that they talked for like an hour or more on this the other day and went through like all of the very particular points of like what is going on in Cuba, and I think that they had a really good insight on all of those points that I do encourage you all to look at. The one thing I will say is that all of the reforms that Cuba has made has nothing to do with retreating. It has nothing to do with admitting any failure of the socialist system, nothing like that. It has nothing to do with like I do have a problem with calling it a retreat, because at the end of the day, what this policy is meant to do is to protect the socialist system of Cuba. I appreciate Nico being so adamant about needing to listen to the speeches and not just reading the reforms on paper. Yeah, because this is the thing. The reforms and policy themselves, Virgo, especially in like a socialist society, we have to understand there's like a feedback, right? Where the policy is presented by the people or presented by the party. The people then like they see the policy, but it is in a way like in socialist societies, it's a way like the masses, it's up to them to voluntarily carry out that party program in whatever way they is best fit for their given situation. So, like, you'll see that policy, but then there'll be a lot of public debate and a lot of public discussion. And then in the next year or the next 2 years, or even as little as a few months, you'll see actual changes in that policy. So again, I always caution comrades when looking at a socialist system, looking at a socialist society, and seeing all these various things and going, oh, well, look, this is a retreat, that's a retreat, that's a retreat, that's a retreat. You know, we shouldn't look at it like that. I think that that's a mistake. Like, you're almost thinking of it like in like a too cartoonish way, where it's like, oh, we went forward a bit, now we got to go back a bit. You know, like, yeah, that is the case, but in the overall grand scheme of things, Cuba is still going forward, right? They're still building socialism. They have altered their strategy to recognize their given current conditions and to work around the given material conditions that they have to work in. But ultimately, it's not about retreating, it's about protecting the revolution. It's about developing the revolution forward. That's not a retreat, right? That's not a retreat. That's the opposite of retreat. You know what? It's the same with exactly, Virgo. Exactly. It's the same with Deng Xiaoping's market reforms.
I've got some literature in my car that will change your whole way of thinking.
Yo, Franks, thank you so much for the resub. I read on Twitter that this is the woke communist community that rejects Frankfurt structuralism, postmodernist strains of theory. This can't be true, can it? This is the place. This is the place. I think Frank identified that 25 months ago or more. Frank was one of my earliest mods that was like, I like what you're up to, buddy. I read on Twitter, well, there's your problem. Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, like I say, I kind of have the same problem with, like, the way people sometimes talk about Deng Xiaoping and say that, like, the reforms that he did was a retreat. How can you look at China today, right? Seriously, how could you look at China today and what China was under Mao and say that that was a retreat? What? Explain it. Like, you know? Because the one thing I'll see people say is like, oh, the Iron Rice Bowl. But the Iron Rice Bowl was a policy that existed on paper, but was not actually able to be put into practice across the whole society. And that was one of the major fucking problems with it that they had. Because it was like again, there was fucking minority nationalities that were not benefiting from it, and other people as well. Like, because the problem was that the policy was very good, but guess what China lacked in order to make that policy fully realized? Do you know? They lacked the productive forces, the infrastructure, the manufacturing capacity, right? Without Deng Xiaoping, the Iron Bowl policy would still just be an idea, essentially, that, yeah, a great number of people benefit from, but a great number of people only hear about the policy and it's not able to benefit them because they don't have because they had to build the infrastructure. They had to build the productive forces in order to do that. And in a country as big and as populous as China, that had to be done extremely quickly. Because, like, if China took longer to, like, reduce poverty and carry out the drives that it did, the fight against poverty that it did, where do you think people would be today in China? Do you think that they would even, like, tolerate that communist system, or would they, much like USSR, fall into this romanticization of Western societies? Right? These are questions that, like, we don't know the answers to, but China all had these concerns as well. And I think the fact that they are still going today at least justifies those concerns as valid, right? Yeah, the rock and roll and blue jeans shit. Exactly. Grill. Yeah, these socialists would have been against Bethune going to China because he was doing capitalist surgeries or something. Yeah, I mean this is the thing. This is why I do like really encourage comrades to get away from like Critique of the Gotha program as being your go-to thing to define socialism by. Yeah, I mean those same GMO's comment here is funny. USSR was socialist for 77 to 8 months in 1920 and that's it. That's literally the position of like the type of people that responded to me. That penguin person. So while that's a funny joke, it's also not that funny. How would you explain to someone new to socialism that Marxism isn't an empirical truth? I mean, the way I like to, I guess the way I constantly try and like get people to understand Marxism is that it's a tool, right? It's an analytical tool. You really do have to think about it like a scientific theory in the way that okay, like we know like there's the force of gravity that acts on us, right? But the theory of gravity, in a sense, like while we know gravity is a true thing, the theory of gravity is still a work in progress, right? That people are still trying to explain all of the reasons for. That's what scientific theory is. It's a thing it's a thing like which develops through the course of trying to understand like objective conditions. And that's why I do like the science part of scientific socialism and dialectical materialism is still such a valid thing. Because that's what it is. Right? It's just a science that like has not been recognized as a science yet, in a sense. Right? Yeah, and gray. It is also a science in the sense that we have like our data of the world, we have our theory and tactics and predictions, and then when we act upon them, we re-examine that theory and then we improve we re-examine that theory and then we improve it with synthesization. This is why when somebody like this is why when somebody comes to us and says like, "Oh, you should read Critique of the Gotha program" in response to like trying to understand like some modern conditions in China or something, it becomes like laughable. Because it's like it's not just this stagnant it's not this just stagnant thing. It's a developing science. And much like science, there is a trend that has been proven. And then there are all kinds of people who fall into like still wanting to hold on to false aspects of that analysis, right? Like you get that in the scientific community as well, if you think about it. And that's like what the left comms are, right? They're like the flat earthers of Marxism.